how words and ideas should be heard rather than listening to words alone. A lot of boomers here. Remember the sitcom Taxi? Anybody? Right? Taxi. There was this one episode that really addressed pacing. Jim, the Christopher Lloyd character, the derelict, needs to renew his driver's license. So he goes to the DMV along with some of his friends, Alex and some of the other drivers because he wants to cheat. He's terrible and he's just terrible at tests. So he's sitting there taking the test, and his friends are about 10 feet away, and he says, Psst, psst. You look over and go, what do you want? What does a yellow light mean? And they say, slow down. What does a yellow light mean? Slow down. What does? Okay, you get the idea. I'm not really doing it justice, but it was one of the funniest episodes I ever saw, and it really addressed the notion of pacing because Jim wasn't listening to what was being said, and they weren't really listening to what he was trying to ask. In any event, to help us better understand how pacing can orchestrate a story, making it more effective, is our president, Michael Brundy. We view Michael as an administrative person, able to run things exceptionally well, which he does. But sometimes we forget that you can't really run anything well until you understand the product. And he understands the product very well. And he's a pretty credible storyteller to boot. Michael's award-winning speaking skills, discovered at Toastmasters and the National Speakers Association, is actually what launched him into the world of storytelling. And combined with his career in telecommunication and information technology, quickly recognized the power of story as a persuasive technique, actually inspiring one of his more recent books, Make a Point, Tell a Story. For a lot of years, he was the national president for the African American Employee Resource Group. It was here where he really tapped into his leadership skill, facilitating discussions about everything from pay to performance appraisal and a lot more, all to reach one very simple, lofty conclusion: to achieve fairness among the human experience by tapping into the human resource potential of its employees, which I think is a really magnificent goal. It's something most people can't do, but it's mixing management with communication and making people feel great. But besides being TSA's president, he's also president of the Dallas Storytelling Guild, I believe, and member of North 40. He's a marathon runner, which makes good sense because he seems to be running one every day, regardless of what he's doing. So now he's going to change the beat a little bit, if you will, in our master classes by guiding us to the power of pacing. Michael?
Hey, thanks, Hank. First, let me start off by one correction. Past president of the Dallas Storytelling Guild, uh, Tim Couch, who's on here right now, is our current president. And I don't want to take away any of his thunder. And I appreciate him being the president because that makes it easier for me being the president of TSA. And with that, guys, I'm glad that all you guys are here and welcome to everybody who showed up. Uh, we're going to talk about pacing. One of the good things about these workshops is that we get a chance to explore all different parts and different elements of storytelling, whether it's developing characters, using body language, or just coming up with your own narrative. And this time we get to do something that we don't talk about very often, but probably should talk about more. And that's pacing and timing. To me, pacing and timing is sort of like the heartbeat of your story. That's, you know, it's not just how fast or how slow the story moves, but it's also how fast and how slow you may talk to move that story, to describe that story, to have an effect on folks. If you want to affect people's emotions, with a lot of us do with stories, uh, pacing can be really cool, and that can be a good way to do it. Really, when you talk about pacing, you can really break it down to there's only a few things you can do with pacing. You can either go fast, you can go slow, You can go pause, or you can just repeat what you said. But those four things are the four most important elements of pacing. But before we get started, though, let me make sure that you guys know what our goals are. I've got Hank and Tony here, and they helped design these workshops. And one thing Hank told me is that it's very, very important to make sure that people know what your goals are and what the learning objectives are. So I want to make sure that we cover that stuff right off so that you guys can say at the end, yeah, we did all of that. So let me read to you. The first learning objective is to understand the importance of pacing and storytelling. Practice timing techniques to emphasize key moments, identify and eliminate distractions in storytelling. Analyze successful storytellers' pacing strategies and experiment with pauses for dramatic effect. And then maybe receive some feedback to refine how we use rhythm and how we do our own storytelling. So that's the objective, guys, to make sure that we understand the importance of storytelling. We get a chance to practice a little bit, identify and eliminate anything that may be distracting, and analyze some really good storytellers who are really good at pacing, and then discuss and talk about it, and play a little bit. So uh, I say we should relax and make sure that we have fun and talk about storytelling. So let me do just that. So for me, the whole idea of pacing and that whether I go fast or whether I go slow or pausing, it's it's the difference between being monotone or not being monotone. There's two different things that they talk about with pacing. You can be flat pacing or dynamic pacing. Flat pacing is just monotone, nothing happens. The same old thing like a flat line. But of course, when dynamic, then things go up and down, up and down, up and down. For me, it reminds me of something that I heard a long time ago. And I don't know if it's a Chinese proverb or who's the proverb, but it was that it's the space between the bars that hold the tiger in the cage. And when I thought about that, I was like, wait a minute, I don't quite get that. But it's the space between the bars. If there were no spaces, then I guess there wouldn't be any bars. But that whole thing, I like it better when it's referred to like it's the spaces between the notes that make the music or make the songs. Because otherwise, you just have one straight. And I remember when I was first learning how to do speaking, and people were talking about body languages and vocal variety. Well, if you stayed the same spot and just stood stiff, then that wasn't cool. But if you moved all around all the time, that wasn't good either. You had to make sure that you stayed still, then moved when it was appropriate, then stayed still. And so that's like the space between the lines. If you do it constantly, then it loses all its effect. The same thing with speaking or telling a story. If I'm always telling at the same pace, or even the same tone for that matter, then I think it becomes monotone, and it's more difficult for the audience to stay engaged. But if I can slow it down sometimes and speed it up a little bit sometimes, then I think the audience is more likely to stay engaged. And 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 there's all different kinds of times when we may choose to slow down or speed up, whether it's maybe something suspenseful or maybe we're excited. Uh, but I want to share with you guys some examples of some speakers that tellers I think that do a very very good job of pacing. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to share my screen, and I've got three tellers just to give you an idea. Okay, three tellers that are professional tellers, but they tell differently. And what I want you to do is listen for the pacing that they do. When they may pause, when they may speed up, when they may repeat something for emphasis, and are repetitive. Um, and then we'll talk about what we see and what we saw. So let me see if I can do all this right. Sharing. Da-da, da-da. Everybody sees the black screen? That's a yes. Let's go. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't do it right. Gotta do it again. Share, share the sound. Now we can share.
All over the country, and I'm going to tell you one thing I know about America. If you're going to freeze to death in America, you're going to be in the South, and you're going to be inside. Now, once there was a prince. He was a mountain prince. He lived on a grange, which is an old word for farm. And the reason I use it is so I can make this rhyme. He lived on a grange on a mountain range. And he wanted to marry a princess. But he didn't want to marry any old princess. He wanted to marry a mountain princess. And so he said to his mama, he lives with his mama, which I think explains a few things. He said to his mama, he said, Mama, I'm going to go out, I'm going to marry me a real mountain princess. He said, the only problem is there ain't no real mountain princesses in the general vicinity. So I'm going to go to all the mountain ranges in all the world, find me a real mountain princess. So he set out, and he ascended the Alps and the Appalachians, and he hiked through the Himalayas, and he roamed through the Rockies, and he cruised through the Caucasus, and he went to the Sierra Nevadas to see if anybody had a tiara. And he went to Glass Mountain, see if anybody had just one shoe. But he couldn't find any real mountain princesses. He met a couple ladies who said they were princesses, but he wasn't sure if they were really princesses, because let's face it, princess costumes just aren't that expensive. And so he went home and he said to his mama, Mama, I couldn't find me no real mountain princess. He said, I met a couple of ladies who said they were princesses, but I think they were frauds. He said, now I kissed those frauds to see if they would turn into princesses. And his mama said, don't kiss frauds, you'll get warts. And that night there was a terrible storm. There was a hurricane and a blizzard and a tsunami and a thunderstorm and a tornado and an earthquake. And in the midst of all that, there was a knock at the door. And the prince went and he opened the door, and there, standing on his front porch, was 3 beautiful princesses. And he was so excited until they said, trick or treat.
Probably because they were trying to arrange transport. He said there were about 400 military folks on the ship, replacing people that were going back to the States. But they finally got off. And they were there on the dock. And he said there was a sergeant there with a big old clipboard, and he was assigning people. Said, this group over here, okay, you're going to get on that transport over there. The transport would come in, they'd get them and haul them off to wherever they're going, where the workstation is. And they kept doing that. And the crowd, all the military, the 400 people, got smaller and smaller and smaller, fewer and fewer, until finally everybody was gone except him. He was the only one there. And he was kind of worried about that. And he went to talk to the sergeant with the clipboard, and they said, well, don't worry about it, Fisher. You're going to be okay. About that time, a guy came up with a Jeep and a trailer, went over to the sergeant, and he said, I saw the sergeant look at me and point at me, and the guy looked at me and shook his head. No. Yeah, that's them. So he went over, get in the Jeep. Connie said he threw his stuff in the back of the Jeep. And he said the guy looked really, well, disappointed. And he said, what's wrong? He said, well, the captain picked you from a list. And on the list, your name is Connie. We were expecting a woman. We were looking forward to the smell of perfume. And Connie said, well, I've got some allspice back in my duffel bag. Didn't seem to satisfy him, but they loaded up their stuff and they went back. They're going to take Connie to his duty station.
The lion and the goats. A great drought had gripped the land.
It had not rained in over a year.
All the rivers had stopped flowing.
The grass dried up, turned brown, and blew away.
All the watering holes turned into mud puddles and then dried up to crust.
The animals began to leave by ones,
by twos,
tens,
20s,
hundreds,
and by the thousands.
And the only animals that stayed behind were those that were too old and weak to travel, and they were just waiting to die.
Now, there was one exception, and that was a lioness, and she was pregnant, and she didn't want to travel that way, so she decided to wait until her cub was born and then could walk beside her.
But as the days passed, it grew harder and harder for her to find food to eat. She grew frightened.
Finally, she woke up one morning and could tell by the changes in her body this was the day that her cub would arrive, and she was weak with hunger. She had to have some food.
So she decided to go on a hunt, hopefully to find something to eat.
She listened as the wind blew past her ears.
And then she stopped, lifted her nose, and sniffed the air.
Goats. I smell goats. She went over.
So she walked over to a cliff that was nearby and peered down below.
And there she saw a little hidden spring bubbling up.
Around that spring was a little pond.
Around that pond was a small patch of grass.
And feeding on that grass was a herd of goats.
Food. Food. She hoped she was strong enough to capture one last meal.
So with what little strength she had left in her body, she jumped off that cliff and landed with a splat.
Now, all the goats had scattered in terror.
And when they returned a few hours later to their little green valley, they discovered to their horror, there in the middle of it lay a dead lioness.
And beside that dead lioness was a newborn lion cub, and it was still alive.
So the goats started debating among themselves about what they should do with this little cub, and finally they agreed they would just raise it as one of their own.
So, did you guys recognize any of those storytellers? And now's the interactive part. So turn off your mics as you choose, but I'd like to get some feedback from you guys as far as what did you hear? What did you notice as far as pacing? I'll give you some ideas. With Bill Lepp, what I noticed was his timing with his humor. And when he was talking about there was a hurricane, a blizzard, an earthquake, the way he speeded up to in that rapid format to make it really emphasizing what he was talking about, just how bad the weather was. Uh, I noticed stuff with Chester, but since Chester's here, I'll save that. But the timing that he came up with for the name of Connie, and if you don't get that timing right, then all of a sudden the joke I think falls flat. And I think that was one of the things that stood out in that one. And Peggy talking about how fast the goats were running off the cliff. So that gives you an idea about some of the things that I heard. What did some of you guys hear as far as pacing? And I can't see all of you, but I don't mind calling on you if you don't raise your hand. So either raise your hand or I'll call on you. How's that? Okay, Tim.
Um,
What did you notice as far as pacing with either one, any one of the three?
Bill Lepp, when he begins telling his story, standing with his hands in his back pockets and rocking, he starts out very slow, which is a slow invitation to the audience to come in, come in, come in. And once he has started that, then he begins to pick up his pace a little bit. I noticed the same things that you did, which is when he was doing actually a fair amount of clever wordplay, when he was going through all the mountains that the young man looked through, where he had rhymes or alliteration in there. He did a whole series of those very, very fast. And you were kind of giggling to yourself, but they weren't big laugh lines. When he came to where he was definitely expecting a laugh, you definitely saw him pause to give the audience time to laugh so that the laughter didn't cover up what he was going to say next.
Mhm. Good stuff, Tim. One thing that I noticed with us guys when I hear a lot of our stories, we tell the story, but there's also performance that goes with the story, and that's part of what I think Tim was describing, how Bill performs that story, so that it really draws us in and makes us want to to listen, lean in, and find out more. Beth, what did you hear? What kind of things did you notice as far as pacing?
Well, one thing, of course, that stands out is that having two tellers going back and forth, as that is a very effective way to pace, and something that I've not really ever tried, but it's interesting uh, and effective. So I enjoy that uh, um,
It
always.
might be something
But
that you could incorporate with my friend Matt. So,
yeah.
Chisholm, I see your hand up. What did you notice about pacing?
I just want to compare two things. Like when it came to numbers and great change, in Chester's story, when the crowd was like and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then for Peggy and Jean, when they're both going back with, okay, they left by the tens, 20, hundreds, thousands, they went very fast. So I guess numbers and great change, like decisively choosing whether to go small, like slower or faster.
And I think you get a different feel for that versus somebody just saying, well, it was 10 of them. No, maybe 100, 150, whatever. It's not as dynamic. And I think that's the one thing that you get a chance to see with them doing numbers. And what I would encourage folks to do is remember when you're telling a story that if there's numbers involved, that's something that you can do to make the numbers stand out and to make them more emphasized. Ken, I think I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to add in any of these different examples of pacing, these are stories that are deliberately polished. They're not just somebody recalling a string of events. This is higher level storytelling, and especially when you have two people together, it's the kind of thing that has to be practiced and practiced and practiced to get it smooth. Um, One quick comment about Bill's use of lists. When he talks about all the different mountains that he's investigated, in a quick succession, when he gives you a list of those mountains, he is describing basically covering the entire earth, but he doesn't have to say that. So, in a way, it's one of these portions of the story where, like an accordion, it is squeezed together and compressed. He's delivering that information that this person has gone all around the world, but he doesn't have to say that at all, just by naming the places, hoping that you'll recognize them. But it's a clever way of tucking in a lot of information in a small period of time, which is a kind of compression, a type of pacing.
And it's a good technique. I think part of what you're describing is that there's more to just the words that we say. It's sometimes your facial expression, sometimes your body language, sometimes the rapidness of the words, or the way that you string a whole bunch of words together so that you don't have to say one other thing or whatever. Uh, any other Chester? Yes. What did you notice? Did you notice anybody that was doing anything, or maybe you can give us some
Well,
insight since you were
well, for
one of
one
the
thing, I was
creators.
surprised. That was interesting. There's some pacing there, I guess.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, I did sit in on a workshop that Bill Lepp did, and Tim kind of reminded me that when he's talking about the mountain thing or the alliteration and so on, Lepp said when he writes, he tries to get a bit of humor in every third sentence, and it wasn't a big laugh, but there was just a touch of something in that whole list of stuff he was doing. So I thought that was interesting. So just a thought.
And even that's another way of pacing, that idea of having something every 3 minutes, every three sentences. That's a pace of doing. I've always heard if you really want to get the audience on your side, try within the first 30 seconds to get them to laugh or and it doesn't have to be a joke. Jokes and humor are two different things. But I think pacing it even impacts whether you're funny or humorous or not. And I think Bill Lepp's a perfect example of that. Uh, any other? Ken, is that your hand up again? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Chester said. It's like the approach to cooking where you season as you go. So he is, shaking a little humor as he goes through his story instead of letting it build up and becoming a joke story. Now, the other comment I had is for Chester's telling. Chester does the classic pause to let the audience understand the importance of what's about to happen. So you stop talking and you wait, and people are envisioning this crowd of folks standing around, and an important announcement is going to be made or an important decision. So that's classic pause to let the audience understand what you're about to hear is important in this story.
And Chester, since you were one of the storytellers, I just want to ask you, when you put your stories together, create your stories, are you thinking about where you might pause, whether you might go fast or go slow when you're, or does that just the way it just comes out?
Well, part of it, let me just piece together a couple of things here. What Ken just said, and then a comment you made about the beginning of a story. That's why I think it's really important. We have this classic battle of lighting. Storytellers want to see their audience.
Mhm.
And, often actors, they want to black out the house. And so, and I know that the way I do it kind of is more conversational. And so it's important to be able to kind of see your audience and kind of just I'm just here. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this is what's going on, and that's the kind of the way I kind of approach that. If that kind of makes sense, and that's kind of where it comes. And then you, as you know, I know you feed off whatever you're seeing in people's in faces and what they're reacting. And I haven't done near as much as you guys have done, but that's kind of the way. If that kind of sort of answers what you're thinking, some of it is thought through a little bit, but mostly it's just kind of, as you know, you never tell it the same way twice.
I think that's a good point. You never tell it the same way twice, but I think you always have that toolbox in your back pocket so that you know that these are things that I do when I tell a story.
And in
Uh,
that particular case, on that particular story, I was telling someone else's story.
mhm.
Luckily, it was somebody I cared about. It was really important for me to do honor to him. But anyway,
Your timing on the end where you threw out the name, and I thought that was uh, that was really good. It well made the whole story to me.
thank you.
Any more before we go on? Cool. Well, welcome all the new folks who have joined since we got started. Uh, the whole idea of how that heartbeat works and how you when you pause, when you don't pause, and the effect of it is something that I want us all of us to get a chance to do some of and practice some. So I'm going to share my screen again with you guys, and let me see. Da, 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 da. Okay, and there we go, and we'll make it big, and we'll continue to share. So you guys should be able to see, right? I take that to be a yes because I can't see you. So here's here's what we want to do. We're going to play a little bit, and these are the pacing tools we're going to use. When this two vertical lines, that's a pause, and a pause is just pause briefly for reflection or impact. The turtle represents slowing down. The little guy running represents speeding up, like exciting or urgency. And then the double arrows, that's the sign just to repeat with rhythm or to reinforce that idea or to emphasize it some. So let me give you guys an idea how that goes, okay? And I'm going to ask you guys to do this, so make sure that you pay attention to what we're trying to do here, okay? And what I want you to do, for me, I'm kind of lucky. Whenever I'm trying to teach something to someone else, really, I'm learning it for me too. For me, one of the hardest things to do is just be quiet and shut up. I have this feeling that if I don't keep talking or if there's too much silence and somebody will jump in or people won't pay attention or something will happen or whatever. So what I try to do when we hit the pause is to count 2 seconds, okay, before you go on, which is really hard because it feels like a long time. So let me show you the footsteps. It was after midnight when I left the library. The campus was empty almost. I heard footsteps, not ahead of me, behind me. Slow, heavy. I walked faster. So did the footsteps. I stopped. They stopped. I turned around. Nothing. A squirrel ran across my foot and I screamed so loud I set off a car alarm. You guys get it? And see how it works? So since I can't see all of you guys at once, what I'm going to do is share my screen, and I'm going to start with Chisholm just because she's from my guild and I like Chisholm. And you get to read the first one. So Chisholm, make me look good, okay?
I'll try, Michael.
I know.
No promises. Oh.
Okay. So this is being suspenseful. Okay? Go.
I reached the old house. The door creaked open, slowly, dark inside. My flashlight flickered. Something moved behind me. I spun around. Nothing.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to get an idea about how you guys saw that and how you heard it. What'd you hear, Hank?
Well, it's interesting because it's pacing and the gestures and postures with which it's accompanied is like grammar, the way we write. And without that concentration, it's the same thing as being a bad writer. When do we pause? When there's a comma? I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Is there a question mark? And I think the pacing really helps to regulate the flow of information and make the meaning of a story come to life.
So if you're going to be suspenseful, guys, have some pauses in there. Give them a chance to catch up with you and get a little scared. So Hank, we'll let you do the next one. Let me see if I can get one. Uh, there you go.
Okay. He smiled and said, "Let's go bowling." I'd never bowled, ever. The ball rolled so slowly toward the gutter. And then, bam, a strike. Total beginner's luck.
Yeah, you're good. You guys notice the difference though when all of a sudden when he's speeding up, or just it just adds a little bit, just that little bit adds to the story. Um, we'll do a couple more, so I'll tell you in advance. Chester, then Ken, then Beth. Uh, let's see. Go, Chester.
I hugged my son, tight, long. He was leaving for college. My heart said, hold on longer. He whispered, I'll be okay, Mom.
It makes a big difference. Who's next? Go. Let me change this. There you go.
Yeah, I think you asked me to do
Yeah,
that.
Ken, that's you. Sorry.
The dog saw the squirrel, bolted. I ran after him, faster. The squirrel stopped. The dog didn't. Straight into the pond.
You are really good with those pauses. I actually count the seconds. I've tapped my foot for the 2 seconds, and you're right on. I forgot the third person I mentioned.
It was me.
Go ahead, Beth.
right, drama, the letter. I unfolded the letter, his handwriting, his words. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner.
Just that pacing changed the whole idea of, I mean, makes it dramatic, makes it suspenseful, makes it humorous. All those different little things, I think, make a big difference in how we tell a story. So, Hester, did I see you out there?
Yes.
We haven't had a chance to hear your voice tonight yet. Uh, have you noticed anything about pacing in the examples that we've had so far?
Yes. And, for me personally, as an actor, that's why sometimes I say, when I'm listening to you guys, to the storytellers, I'm saying to myself, I want to be able to feel the emotion that they're going to. And sometimes I'm thinking I'm really being a little too serious because I feel like with some of them, I'm not really feeling the emotions of what's being said or what's being told.
And one of the
And
things that we said earlier too is that with the pacing, that's another way to express the emotion or to get people to feel that emotion.
right, okay.
Whether it's fast or slow or trying to get them to be scared. When we talk real fast, people will probably get scared about what's coming up, what they're about to see, all those
Mhm.
types of things. Uh, who else is out there that I haven't had a chance to hear from yet? Uh, Let me go to the gallery view.
You
Vivek,
see, I'm sorry.
I'm so, oh, I heard somebody say something, but I didn't see who it
I
was.
was about to say something.
Go ahead, Hester, and then Vivek,
So,
I'll give you a chance to read one.
so my deal sometimes I feel like if I'm telling a story, I know you don't always have to be dramatic because if it's not dramatic, but I think that's a lot of work for me to pace myself to just tell the story rather than I'm thinking I'm saying this right, rather than acting the story. Does that make sense to you? Just seem like I don't want to come out performing. I want to be able to tell the story.
I, I
I don't,
I think the best thing that anybody can do is be authentic, but
okay.
I don't think that that means that I'm not necessarily performing at the same time. Uh, Even if I'm trying to act like I'm not performing, I'm performing.
Now, thank you. That's me.
Yeah. So I say it like that because I take it that seriously. So no matter whether I'm telling a personal story, historical story, whether I'm telling it at the Guild, whether I'm telling on the stage, I take that seriously. One of the things that I was always told was that um, just find one great story, one just good way of speaking, and that would be all I need. But for me, what I end up finding out is all the different tools, whether that's how to use body language, how to use vocal variety, all those different things. And then, regardless of the story, then how can I fit those in and use those tools to help shape that story? But I always understand that I'm on stage, somebody's watching me, and I know that how I show up determines how people hear me and what they hear. So if I don't take it seriously like that, then they may not take me seriously. So I I don't have a problem with anybody who wants to perform a little bit. And speaking of performing, guys, it's now time for you guys to hear me tell a story, and then we'll take a break. How's that? So let me show you my example of pacing in a story. Good enough? When I was a kid, I was my father's first son. Not second, not third, but his first son. And my father's all man, so having a boy, that was a big deal. And I can remember being a little bitty guy, and my dad would always be saying, Michael, Michael, come watch the game. over and over and over, he would always do that. It would bug me all the time. But being the first son comes with some responsibilities too. So most times I would come and watch the game. It was the time, baseball. Baseball was a big deal with my dad, and it was the way that he gave me lessons. He would always use baseball. I didn't understand then, but for my dad, when he was yelling, Michael, come watch the game, he just wanted to share this new technology with me. My dad was born in 1930, so all his life, for 30, close to 30 years, he only listened to baseball games on the radio. Now he had a TV. Now he could even see instant replays, running it over and over again. So he just wanted to share it with me. And that's why he would always say, Michael, come watch the game. And I would sit there with him and he would tell me so many stories about ball players. And that was his way of, I guess, teaching me some morals and how I should be when I grow up. He used to always tell me about Satchel Paige. Satchel Paige was a great, great, great pitcher, but he was real flamboyant. He was good, but he was flamboyant. And that was one of Dad's lessons to say, well, if you're going to be showing off, you better make sure you are darn good. You just don't be showing off and then come up short. When I was, I guess, about 10 years old, my dad even took me to a game to see Satchel Paige pitch. Now, Satchel Paige then was, he was an old guy. I think he was in his 60s just about. And Charlie Finley, who was the manager of the Kansas City A's at the time, he was a showman and he had Satch come pitch about 3 innings. And my dad took me to make sure that I could say, I saw Satchel Paige pitch. Now, Satch only pitched 3 innings that day, but I heard about one game that he had where he was pitching for the Kansas City Monarchs and they were playing in Philadelphia. And all of a sudden, it was Satch against the great Josh Gibson. Now, if you don't know who Josh Gibson was one of the greatest home run hitters ever. He was what they would call the black Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth was what they would call the white Josh Gibson. He hit that many home runs. He was just powerful. And on this day, it was just Josh and Satchel Paige, two of the greatest. Satch was out on the mound. Josh came up to bat. Satch, being the showman that he was, he had all the infielders come in, go sit in the dugout. You got to be pretty bold to have the whole infield just go sit in the dugout. And then he started talking smack to Josh. He said, Josh, I'm going to throw you 3 fastballs and all of them are going to go right by you. And he reared back. He has a lot of different pitches he could have thrown, but this was going to be the fastball. Bam! Ball went right past Josh. Strike 1. Now, Satch had told Josh it was going to be 3 fastballs, but Josh was a little concerned because Satchel Paige had a whole bucket load of pitches. He had a hesitation pitch that he throws sometimes. Then he had one that would just go over and up, all kinds of pitches. But Satch was true to his word. And he reared back, and with all his might, shoom, he threw a second pitch, and it was strike 2. Josh had missed 2 pitches in a row. Now, Josh Gibson doesn't strike out very often, but Satch was on his money. He was doing things. He reared back for that 3rd pitch, and shoom, and Satch threw that ball, and Josh went and swung and connected with that pitch, and wow, that ball went up and up and up and up, and it never, never came down. It never came down. That's the kind of ball player Josh Gibson was. He could hit a ball so far, so high that nobody could even see it. The next day, their team was playing in Pittsburgh, hundreds of miles away from Philadelphia. And it was about the 3rd inning. And all of a sudden, a ball came floating down out of the sky. The center fielder caught it. The ump said, Josh out yesterday. That's how it goes. Anyway, that's my little story, guys. And hopefully you notice some pacing. Some times when I speed up or slow down or hesitate or, you know, give you enough time to catch up to the story or to show how that hesitation pitch would go. All those things I think are part of ways that we pace our stories and the way that you can even perform a little bit with the stories so that people can really get the idea. So we're going to take a break in a second, but I want to see if any of you guys have any feedback for me about uh, uh, my story or anything else that we've talked about so far. So let me see if I can get back to gallery view so I can see all you guys. And Ken, I see your hand up. And Dean, I'm not sure. Were you trying to tell me something too?
No, it's Hank who's holding up
Oh,
his hand. Yeah.
okay. Well, Hank, you go first, and then we'll
Yeah.
get to Ken.
Okay. No, I really liked that story a lot because it no, it demonstrated a lot. I wanted to go back to what Hester was saying earlier. That really struck my interest. A good friend of mine, David Rainey, is an actor here in Houston. He's at the Alley Theater. He's a very, very, very famous actor. And I had him as a guest on a show once where he was going to tell stories, and he was a nervous wreck. And I said, David, why would you be nervous? I mean, you're an actor. He says, I know I can play anybody, but now you're asking me to play myself. So he was a total wreck. And he said, yeah, he's learned. I know that some people may disagree. I think Tony has a different top spin on this, but to him, storytelling is not theater. Um, to him, it's got to be very authentic. It's got to be a narrative. It can't be forced on any level, unless it's a children's story and you've got a lesson and you've got some play activity within the context of that story, the tortoise and the hare. You know, that's a little bit different, but I'll never forget what he said. And it seems to smack of what Hester was thinking about earlier about being too dramatic at times. I don't know. He taught me that. So for whatever it's worth.
And I think that's goes along with why I say having the tools in your toolbox, so that no matter what story you're telling or when you're telling the story, you know what kinds of things affect an audience and what kind of things will get you the kind of emotions or connect with the audience that way that you want to. So to me, because you never can tell the same story twice, and I don't like to memorize stories, but I do like to know that, well, they look like they're kind of bored right now. Maybe I should speed up, or I want them really to pay attention. And people do listen to you, more when you talk real slow and get real quiet. So there's different kind of techniques and things that I think you can still do, even while you're still being authentic and telling the story for the first, second, third, or fourth time. And Ken, you had something I think you want to say.
Yes, I just wanted to observe, Michael, when you tell, your use of pauses coincides very often with backing away from the camera for a moment. And, stylistically speaking, this is a form of storytelling that we do on Zoom or on television. But if you were up on a stage with a microphone and everybody's slightly below you and out in the audience, that moving back doesn't translate,
Mhm.
right? So your style of storytelling tonight reflects a good way of using Zoom by simply backing up and moving forward, because not only do we know that this is a punctuation in the story, but by not speaking most of that time, it emphasizes the pause.
And for
And
me, Ken, I come to storytelling from a speaking background. So
right,
I think in terms of if I'm on the stage, uh, I even subconsciously will step back so that I can step forward to make a point. And
sure.
and that there's certain things that you do. That's why that whether it should be a performance or not a performance, I think I just want to have that stuff in my tool bag so that I can just use it subconsciously or maybe even consciously. But I
Yeah.
think it does make a difference. Go ahead.
And a quick comment on what Hester was saying. In the art of acting, you're given directions, but you're very rarely told by a director, pause here, say this slower. But the exercise you had us do was kind of like coming up with a notation, as you would with music, where you hold a note for a certain period of time, 2 beats, right? For a pause. Well, when it translates to how people speak when they're telling stories, one person's pause is not the same length as somebody else's. We're all a little bit different. And so for Hester to feel perfectly comfortable, she's looking for general guidance, and then it has to flow from the character, right, Hester? So looking at notations on your script given to you by a director, that would be a real turnoff, I think. Anyway, I'm talking too much, so thank you.
Okay, Tim, you next, and then we'll get to Chester and Hester.
Two things, Michael. I've had the advantage of hearing you tell this story a number of times before, and actually a number of different variations of it. And one of the things that you had in terms of pacing was repetition, and your use of Michael, Michael, come watch the game is a repetition which ultimately serves as a metaphor for the development of culture and how your father recognized the passage of time and how that reflected the change in the culture in America. So it is a repetition that needs to be in there because as you hear the story a little bit longer, you understand that that is more than just your father calling you to watch a particular game. That is your father calling you to be aware of changes that are made, and he tells you about history in it. The other thing that I noticed in terms of a particularly impactful pause is where you, on one occasion, stopped after every word, which led great gravity to that moment which it needed, which is, my father wanted me to make sure I could say, I saw Satchel Paige pitch. Long, not long, but a significant pause after every word, which showed this is a momentous moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you got it, Tim. For me too, there's some acting too. I guess if I was on stage, maybe there's another way of doing that. But that's also another good thing about now. We're learning how to do things even more because we got to do Zoom, so that even enhances our skills. What you got, Chester?
It's kind of minor compared to everything else. Hester really opened up something here, but in terms of overacting, it made me think of a quote from Spencer Tracy once when he was asked for advice on acting. He said, "Learn your lines and don't bump into the furniture."
There you go. Yeah, well, I heard Mark Twain said that he works, what was it, 30 minutes for, no, 3 hours for 30-second spontaneous speech. Go ahead, Hester. I see your hand up.
All right. So what I did and what I want to ask you, this is a true story.
Mhm.
So when you first saw Satchel Paige, the thing that I wrote down when you're talking about emotions, were you really excited to see Satchel Paige? I just wrote that down.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah.
Did you get to know the bigness of, if that's a word, of who you were watching in person?
No, no, no. I was excited about being with my dad. My dad was excited about me seeing Satchel Paige.
That just answered that for me because I wrote a question mark. That I wrote a question mark. I said, I don't know. It felt like Michael wasn't that excited about seeing him. I just kind of wrote that down. And then I don't know who made a comment about this, but they are absolutely right. Like when you get director's note, I want you to do this, then I want you to turn. It is so mechanical. But
Mhm.
then at some point, it becomes part of, what you're supposed to do. That is why one of the biggest conflict I had with a director that the day of the performance, I was going out. He said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, you need to cut the light off before you leave stage." And I was livid because I didn't have that in my notes. So, what I'm saying to you, this is really good because what I like what you did, I can I can see the ball being pitched. I can see, I can see it from your sounds that you made. So I like that that you added that in your storytelling. And you did a very good job doing that. I can see that. I can visualize it. I just wanted to say that.
Thanks. So, guys, my personal thinking for this whole workshop is to make sure that I provide the skeleton for about what the subject is, and let all you experts help me put some meat on those bones. And that's what you guys have been doing, as well as me tell some stories, and you give me some feedback on that. And I want you guys to do the same. Um, I know normally on Zoom, this is a time when we break out into breakout rooms and you go tell 2 men and then we come back and all that kind of stuff. But I want to switch it up, guys. What I want to do is take a break from 8 to 8:15. And during that 15 minutes, I want you guys to not only go to the bathroom or get a drink of water, but think about maybe a 2-minute story that you can make up or that you know already that you can share with the rest of us that shows us uh, pacing, because I think we get a lot more out of watching each other and discussing with each other. And breakout rooms, 2 or 3 people. I don't like that myself, so I don't want to put anybody else through that. So does that sound good to everybody? Come back at 8:15 and come back with a story. Got it? And if you're too shy, don't let that keep you from coming back. We've got a lot of people that will take up all the time, so don't worry about that at all. You are allowed to just listen.
Yeah,
So,
we'll just tell a story about you. That's all. Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and then I'll be right back, Hank, and you can tell me how we're going
Okay.
so far.
All right. Thank you, Michael. By the way, not are you still there? Yeah.
Yes,
You don't have to use these at all, but you got that stuff that I sent you in case you wanted to play with it, those
yes, yes, yes,
exercises.
yes,
Okay, just in case. Yeah.
yes. But so far, I like what I get from all the people, because
Oh, no, no, no.
you
This is
guys are
far
pretty
better.
smart.
Very interactive. Very
And
good.
plus, I'm really kind of lucky because I know most everybody on the screen.
Yeah.
When I can see the names, at least I know. And I know I got folks like Tim that can always bail me out.
No. Great job. Great job.
Hey Tim, sure appreciate you coming up this weekend. Of course, you've been coming to these things about as long as I have.
Yeah, I had a break in there, Chester, when I was caregiving, but I've been to I've been to a majority of the Spirit of Oklahoma, and I'm glad to have been able to start last year coming again, and I look forward to coming in the future.
Well, next year, the 20th, I don't know how they're going to put that together, but hope it's going to be a nice one. Probably will be.
Should be. They increased the amount that they've budgeted for it, so I hope that you have a good time and have a lot of people show up.
Well, the last couple of years, we've been pretty cheap at everything we've done, so we've got we have a decent budget for our small organization.
Yeah.
So we'll see
Well,
what happens.
COVID knocked the stuffings out of a whole bunch of different arts organizations, including storytelling. I'm trying to work with the Dallas Storytelling Guild and get us to do some more stuff. We're trying to do some more in-person kind of stuff. We had before COVID, we had a retreat that took place at my school's outdoor facility, and um, I actually hadn't thought of it. I was saying to our board guild, what can we do? And Richard Nash, our treasurer, said, could we have a retreat again? And I said, boy, I don't know. It's been several years now since I've asked, and the outdoor director has changed, and a lot has changed about the school. But I wrote the young man who is now the outdoor director at the Episcopal School, who was a student of mine a long time ago. And he wrote me back promptly and said, "Oh yeah, we'll give you for no cost. We'll give you the facility if you want it." So I'm writing him and saying, "Yep, we had a board meeting. We had it last night, and we are going to accept your kind offer and set up for a weekend retreat there, which should be fun." We're also trying to get our Halloween concert back again. That was always our big fundraiser, and COVID just knocked us down, and we had not had one since 2020, and so that has watched our organizational budget. Of course, we haven't been doing a lot, so but we have watched our organizational budget down, down, down because we've had no fundraising going on, and we're trying to get that set up for this year. I really would like to have a fundraiser concert. We've agreed to do the guild has agreed to do a concert for free at one of our local parks um, during Halloween season. But I would like to have us get back and do one for fundraising again because I, I think I think it's important for us to fund our organization um, and be active in that way too.
Hey, Michael.
Hey guys, glad you guys all made it back. Uh, so you had a chance for a little health break, wet your whistle, and let's see if storytellers can tell some short stories. And if you're not telling, try to listen for the pauses or the times when the person speeds up or slows down or is repetitive, and be able to give them a little bit of feedback about what you saw. And let's see, just so that you guys have a little idea about the order, we'll go with Pam first. That's you, Pam Pipkin. Tony second, and Ellie, you third. And we'll start with them and see what we got. How's that? So Pam, if you want to unmute yourself, tell us a story.
Okay. Elephant was walking through the jungle when he came to a clearing, and there in the middle of the clearing he saw Hummingbird. Hummingbird was lying flat on his back, his little feet up in the air. Elephant was concerned. Hummingbird, he said, are you sick? Are you hurt? Can I help? Hummingbird said, oh, Elephant, I'm all right, but I've heard the sky might fall down today, and so I want to be sure I'm doing all I can to help hold it up. Elephant couldn't help it. He began to laugh. He laughed so hard his sides shook. He laughed so hard the ground shook. He laughed so hard Hummingbird bounced up and down on the ground. When Elephant could control his laughter, he said, I'm sorry, Hummingbird. I'm really not laughing at you. But you must see how impossible it is for you to hold up the sky with just your two tiny feet. Hummingbird said, Oh, I know, but Elephant, I figured if something bad might happen, everyone should do what they can to help. And this is what I can do.
Uh, Brief feedback for Pam. What I liked and what I noticed was in the story, whenever you got to one of those buts, that was a nice little pause. So that it got me waiting and leaning to hear what was coming next. But this is what I can do. Uh, and well, that's one comment for me. Anybody else have a comment for Pam about what they noticed about her pacing? Go ahead, Beth. Is that you or is that your dog waving its tail? Oh, there's a dog. Go ahead, Chester.
Well, the pacing, there's some pacing there, but her voice changes kind of. I thought that kind of worked and helped.
Hmm. I agree. So, Tony, you're next. You got a short story? Tell us a story, Tony.
All right. One of my favorite things about my childhood was my mother's cooking. My mother was such an incredible cook. The problem of it was is every time she made something that was just absolutely fantastic, my father would come up with a way of making it weird. This happened on one particular night. My mother made a delicious chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. Oh, my favorite. And she made it from scratch, not from Duncan Hines or Pillsbury. And so I was just really looking forward to having a slice of that delicious, moist chocolate cake and chocolate frosting. Now, my dad, being the head of the family, of course, always got the first slice. And me being the youngest, I always got the last slice, which was fine as long as I got a slice. But of course, by the time I got my slice, I had noticed that my dad had cut off a slice of cheese and put it on top of the slice of cake and proceeded to eat this cake and cheese together. And I looked at him and I said, What are you doing? And he looked at me and he just simply said, Cake without cheese is like a kiss without a squeeze. Now, of course, being a child, kissing and squeezing was kind of disgusting. So that just reinforced the idea that the cake and cheese would also be disgusting. And I just thought my dad has got to be the weirdest man alive. But as I got older, kissing and squeezing became rather enjoyable. And I thought, well, maybe there's something to this cake and cheese thing. So one day I decided to make myself a nice chocolate cake with chocolate frosting. And I happened to have some sliced cheese in the fridge. And I says, let's see if my dad knew what he was talking about. So I took one of those slices of cheese and I put it on that cake. And I'll tell you what, next to actual kissing and squeezing, that cake and cheese was pretty darn good.
Good story, Tony. I don't know what you guys noticed as far as his pacing, but in the very beginning, what I really noticed and really liked was it was really slow, and it's kind of slow that draws you in because it makes you have to listen and want to know where he's going with it. I think that's a really good part of the pacing. The other thing that I wrote down too was squeezing the cheese. You said it in such a fast way that it made it uh, it just made it cool to way to describe it. And then the last that I noticed was that pause. but as I got older, and I think that that long pause makes it sort of like covers a space of time, and you didn't have to say anything about that time, but the pause covered all those years from when you were a kid to now. It's like, but as I got older, and I thought that was really effective. Anybody else got any notice anything about pacing with Tony? Hank, go ahead.
Well, I thought Tony did a great job with that because I tasted the cake while he was talking about it. So he was able to communicate that sensation, that gustatory sensation, which is very difficult to do. But I tasted it while he was talking about it, and it had everything to do with his pacing.
I'm sorry, guys. I had one of those grandkids interruptions. But, Hank, I missed what you said, but everybody else heard it, so that's all that was important. So, any other feedback for Tony? How about Ellie? Why don't you tell us a story?
Ellie, Ellie, you will not believe that. This was Louis, my best friend. We were preschoolers, small children, growing up in a city. We never had pets. But this summer, his grandfather brought a real rooster. And for the first time in our lives, we had a pet. You are a liar, Louis, I say. What are you saying? Well, Ellie, Jack, a rooster, he eats newspapers. What? You're a liar. Well, yeah, look. And he gave a piece of newspaper and the rooster just ate it. May I try? Sure. He gave me a piece of paper. I gave it to the rooster and the rooster, whoop, he ate it. And our summer became much more enjoyable. Every morning, can't wait to our grandparents to read their newspapers, and we will feed it to the rooster. Newspaper with noodles, newspapers with milk, newspapers with salt, his favorite, newspaper with sugar, newspaper with jelly, whatever you can think of, he ate it. I'm not going to tell you the sad story of the end of Jack the Rooster. But we've learned 3 life lessons. The first one was never push food on other people. Then the best food may not be good for you. And the third one is always take the news with a grain of salt.
Good one, Ellie. I really like the pacing that you did when when you number things. I think that makes it even more impactful. What else did you guys notice with Ellie? Uh, Go ahead, Sarah. I think I see your hand.
Well, no, I was actually drinking some water, but I will make a comment. I loved her pauses. I'm a visual person, and when a story's being told, the screen comes down, and I could just see this rooster, and how she would say he'd snatch the paper from them. So it was great pauses.
Good.
And
Go ahead.
yeah,
Okay.
that's all.
Hester, I see your hand up.
I love this story. I've heard her tell the story before, and her voice tone is, to me, is childlike. Like she's the child that received the rooster. I don't see her. I see the child that's telling the story.
Did you notice the rhythm that she told the story in? How
Ooh.
fast, how slow, and where she sped up and all that?
Absolutely. I sure did. How she paused. She had pauses because I could see that rooster. The rooster was pecking at my hand trying to get my newspaper.
It makes a difference how you tell it, I think.
Absolutely.
Hank, did you have some comments?
No,
I saw
no.
you come off mute. Oh, okay. Well, we got through the first three stories, guys. When I look at my clock, we probably have time for three more. How's about? So, how about? Oh, Dean, you want to be one, or are you just trying to tell me something different? Dean's got a story. Hank's got a story, and Hester's got a story. So we'll go in that order. Dean, Hank, and Hester. Dean, you first.
All right, hold on a second. Okay. Whoops.
And we're noticing pauses and his pacing, guys.
I
Rhythm.
walked into the room and my apprehension was realized. I didn't know anyone. But then I noticed a guy sitting by himself at the end of the middle row. Since there were only 10 chairs per row, I walked down from the other end. Are you saving a seat for anyone? I asked. He looked up slowly and paused before saying, I was going to save the whole row, but since I'm here by myself, that seemed unnecessary. Good, I said, sitting down with a chair between us. I looked around the room, noting all of the empty chairs. I was concerned I would have to sit in the back. Me too, he responded. I thought a lecture on finding humor in every situation would be better attended. Yes, I said. It's very sad.
I like the idea of your dialogue. I think you don't rush the dialogue, and I think the pauses in between the dialogue makes it stand out. Uh, and I think that's something that all of us want to make sure that we do if we're telling a story when you're telling the dialogue, so the speakers don't run up on each other. And Dean, you did a good job of that one. And I like the idea that you just pause before you start, before saying stuff. What did you guys notice about Dean's rhythm, his pausing, his telling of the story? Anybody? Go ahead, Ken.
Dean, I have a quick question for you. Did you read that story aloud?
You're on mute, Dean.
Yes, sorry, Ken. Yeah, I was reading it. I just written it, so I was reading it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate written stories, but there is something different when someone reads a story as opposed to when they're telling a story. And it has a bit to do with pacing, but it also has to do with the dynamics of the voice. So that was something I spotted. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it sort of sounded like you were reading.
I see Tim's hand up.
One of the instances that I noticed effective use of pacing was I walked into the room and my apprehension was realized. Substantial pause there. All of a sudden, what is the apprehension that was realized? Very effective use of a pause there.
I got a youngster. Can you go on mute, maybe? Okay. Tim, were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Hank, why don't you tell us a story? And you guys listen for the pacing.
1964. And my science teacher, Mr. Johns, who I hated, I say that because, boy, he invented hate like no one. And he came in the day after spring break and he said to the class, Spring has sprung. And to celebrate, all of you will be doing an insect collection. Well, I got allergies, I got asthma, and I don't like the outdoors. So I didn't like the entire idea. And then he goes on and he says, here's the best way to do this assignment. Get a net, find a good place to walk in the woods, go alone, and go at dusk. Can you imagine that assignment given now to an 11-year-old? I want you to grab a net and in the middle of the night, we want you to walk into the woods and have some fun and bring back a collection. This is the kind of guy he is. So, the whole thing was ridiculous. So I did it because it was an assignment. So I grab my Primatine Mist, I take a spray, and I go into the woods, and all of a sudden, there is a swarm of bees. And I mean the biggest swarm you can imagine coming right toward me. And I know they only receive one order: attack at will. It was a full frontal assault. I hightailed it out of there, out of the woods as soon as possible. I grabbed my money, whatever I had, a little bit of allowance, and I went to a hobby store and I bought an insect collection. I bought one. And you know what? I looked at the back of it and it said Yale, and I said, oh, this is an A. So I handed it in with everybody else the next week. And Mr. Johns comes up to me and says, I want to talk to you. He gives me an F on the assignment. I said, why are you giving me an F on the assignment? He said, you didn't do this. And I said, so what? You know, I didn't know what else to say. I said, but Mr. Johns, with all due respect, this came from Yale. He said, Hank, this is Yale Hobby Company. So I failed on many different levels, but I can tell you this: for any of you who are middle school teachers, don't give insect collection assignments. They're really stupid.
Great story, Hank. The first thing that I noticed with the pausing was it was 1964, and just that right there was pause and gave me enough time to reflect and think about what 1964 meant, which is better than rushing into to the story. The other thing I noticed too, when you were talking about I've got allergies and sinuses and blah 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 blah. The idea when we're talking about a collection of things, I think when you say it rapidly like that, I think that was really effective and real cool. And then I like the pause. I think it adds humor when you pause and say Yale the hobby club or whatever. Uh, it takes a special kind of timing, I think, to use humor, and that pause, I think, makes all of us a little bit more humorous, even if we think that we're not. Um, Ken, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that uh, the pause that you made just before you said, and I hated him, that just really emphasized this relationship, and it creates the drama at the very beginning of the story. And I love the humor. I like the way that you paused before revealing about the true nature of the Yale company. So there are very, very skillful uses of pauses. And you slowed down to emphasize some of those points too. The bees really sounded scary. So nice job.
Tim, I see your hand up.
I'm going to come to the same point that Ken made, but come at it in a different direction. When you said the word hated, you paused before you said it, and then you drew the word out. So we knew you really hated that man. And the second point that I especially noted was when the bees were swarming towards you, you said the they had one order: pause. And I laughed immediately because you could laugh because you don't know what's coming, and you can laugh because you do know what's coming. And in that case, I laughed because I did know what was coming: attack at will. So it was a very effective pause because we knew exactly what was coming. I mean, I could see them swarming toward me.
I think sometimes, guys, just when we're telling a story and trying to describe it, I think sometimes you automatically, if you let yourself, you'll do the right pacing, you'll slow down and you'll speed up. And just like Tim was describing with Hank, I think you can actually feel it and see it just based on the pacing that we do. Did I see somebody else's hand up that I missed? Uh, Go ahead, Chisholm.
I think for me, the part that I liked the best was when Hank said, "Can you imagine?" Like it was also faster and reminds me of like commentary and humor, and just like how build up, like those parts were fast, and it was really great. I loved it.
Thank you.
I think sometimes we're so good that we don't realize that we're actually practicing those skills even as we do them. and it looks like it's just words coming out of your mouth, but it does make a difference when you speed up, slow down, and do those things. Hey, Hester, you're next up. You want to tell us a story? You got to come off mute. There you go. No, you're still on mute. Keep looking, keep looking. It's got to be down there somewhere. There you go. You got it. Tell us a story, Hester.
I was the 14th of 15 children. Money was really tight. Well, by the time I was born, 11, grew up with 11. And by that time, my daddy was gone. Girl, my mother, she had the hand of iron. We was all brought up into a really religious home. Thou should not steal, thou should not lie. All of those things that we were terrified of doing. Somehow one day I discovered a dime on top of the freezer. You really needed to get a ladder to get to the top of this freezer. And there was a dusty dime up there. I looked at that dime, and that dime sure did look nice. I looked to my left, and I can see my mother sitting on the porch with her legs crossed. She did that oftentimes, sitting there watching the people go by and just sitting there watching. I looked to my right, and there was a back door that I can exit and go behind some of the backyards back there, go down some steps and wait until the ice cream man came. But I looked at that dusty dime and I knew the dime wasn't mine. It had to have been up here a long time because it was dusty. So my little fingers just grabbed the dime. I came off the ladder, looked over to my left at my mother, looked to my right, and exit the back door. I walked down to the backyards, down some steps, and I waited. Because I knew just about the time that I was down there, the ice cream man, ding, ding, I knew he would be coming. I raised my little head up. I could still see my mother sitting on the front porch. About 5 minutes later, I could hear the sound. Ding, ding. And as the ice cream man was about to pass me, mister, mister, I beckoned him over to me. He asked me what I wanted, and I said vanilla. But I asked him to bring it to me because my mother was sitting on the porch and she could see me from where she was sitting. And he brought it over to me, that vanilla ice cream cone. I gave him the dusty dime and I sat on the step and I was in ice cream heaven. I licked and I swerved my tongue around and I was gulping that ice cream as fast as I could. And all of a sudden I heard my name, Hester, Hester, come here. Oh my God, that's my mother calling me. What does she want? I pushed the ice cream to my mouth and I ate it as fast as I could. I wiped my hands on my blouse so it couldn't be seen. I took a deep breath. I walked up the steps, walked back to those backyards, into that back door. Ma'am? Yes, ma'am. She beckoned me to come toward her on the front porch. She said, I got a dime on top of the freeze. I need you to bring it to me. Yes, ma'am. I'll bring it to you. What in the world was I gonna do? I done took that dime and bought an ice cream cone. Well, I went to the motions of going to the ladder and going up this ladder to look up there, knowing that that dime was not up there. I was coming down, and all of a sudden I felt a whack on my back. Didn't I tell you? Don't you ever lie to me again. You took that dime. Little did I know that that was the beginning of my mother planting monies around the house, and we dare to take it. I never did anymore.
Good story, Hester.
Thank you.
I I really like your pace of just overall telling the story. It's a nice slow pace that draws you in and makes you want to listen. And it wasn't it didn't feel rushed at all. It's like sitting
Thank
on
you.
a porch listening to a story on a cool day. Nowhere to go. That kind of feeling. When you first started, I was the 14th, I was the 15th, whatever. That many kids. I think one thing that we've noticed over and over again tonight is that one thing that works with pacing is numbers. We tend to naturally even say numbers quickly. I think it probably comes from when we're children, and that's the way we count: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But it does seem to have a good positive descriptive effect when people use it when they're telling stories and they're listing off things, and particularly when you're saying numbers. So when you're numbering how many kids, that was really effective. The other thing too, when you sped up when you were talking about the clothes and brushing off your clothes and getting. Uh, I know it's a small thing, and if we could see you, you'd be making all kinds of movement. But I could hear it in your voice, and I could hear the rustling of the clothes, and that was because of the pace of your doing it. So I thought that was really effective, and of course the slow draw of yes, ma'am. I know how that feels. There's different ways that you can say yes, ma'am, and if you say it slow, fast, or whatever, you get that different feeling. And being a kid who had to say yes, ma'am, I know how to say yes, ma'am, in a smart aleck way and all kinds of ways that sometimes can get your mouth slapped and you just how you say it. So the pace of how you say those things make your story even more authentic and sound more for real to me because I guess I can resonate with yeah, that's how it was when I heard yes ma'am when I grew up. But what did some of you other guys hear as far as the pacing with Hester? What stood out or what did you notice? Raise your hand, come off mute. Go ahead, Chester.
Well, when the ice cream man first started coming, she got more excited. And
And
I thought that worked
how did
well.
her voice what was the pace of her voice when she got excited?
It speeded up a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. She could hear it coming.
When we get excited when we're doing something fast, usually we speed up, but we speed up also with short sentences too. The sentences get a lot shorter, and it's like a little burst of machine gun fire, that kind of thing. Whereas opposed, if you were slowing down at a funeral, I guess, and it'd be longer sentences, or at least it would feel much longer. Pam, did I see your hand go up?
Yes.
What are you going to share?
Well, when she was looking about the dime and thinking, should I, shouldn't I? She kind of had that little bit of an uncertainty to the voice and to the pacing.
Yep. And
Like,
and and it seems as if when she's telling that part, her pacing was the same as what it would have been if she was been reaching for the dime on the refrigerator, kind of hesitant back and forth, so you could get the feel even as of what she was doing by how she said what she was doing.
because we know it's wrong, but doing it anyway.
Did I see somebody else's hand? Guys, go ahead, Tim. And then we've got time for just a couple more. I want everybody to get a chance if they want to tell a story. So go ahead, Tim.
Sure. When she took the dime in the concept of show don't tell. She didn't say, I stealthily exited the house. She said, I took the dime. Paused slowly down the ladder. I looked at mom. I looked left. I looked right. I went to the back door and exited. She didn't have to say it was stealthy. In the pauses, she told us exactly how stealthily she exited.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's one of the invisible things about storytelling and pacing. Pacing is sort of like one of those invisible forces that help tell the story. It's like invisible words, because sometimes just the pacing itself replaces the words. It surely enhances the words, but can feel like it replaces the words sometimes. Go ahead, Chisholm.
Also, building off of what Tim said, just before, like, when she was going downstairs, there was a pause before, like Kester said, ice cream truck, right? And that just built it up for me. It was like, oh, what is she going down there to do with the dime? And then the ice cream truck came in, then it just ushered in the energetic excitement, fast pace. It was good.
Cool. So, Sarah, go ahead.
For those of us who grew up during that era when you had to say yes ma'am and no ma'am, we knew when she started the story climbing up the ladder on the freezer, we knew she was in trouble. We just was waiting to see what happened because I was thinking, oh my God. So for me, she painted a wonderful picture because our generation, and Michael, the parents said don't do something, we better not do it. So I knew that I could relate to the story. I could relate to it. So
and her pacing of going up the ladder, I think it's like I said, the way she told the words were at the same pace of what you would be climbing up the ladder, and I think that's one thing to take away from all this is that uh, because we talk about performance or not performance and all that kind of stuff. But I think if you keep in mind that you want your words and the pacing of those words to reflect that same thing, and sometimes you can do it just by pausing or just by speeding up, and you don't have to say those same words, and that's a good technique. I see Ken's hand up.
Yes, Hester, I have a question for you. When you were describing your exiting of the house and navigating through the neighborhood to where you saw the ice cream man, were the details for you not as clear as they might have been? Did you feel confident in your surroundings? Because when you slowed down, it somehow it didn't sound as if you had a complete picture of what that backyard area looked like. Am I off, or was that just slow pacing
Well,
for the sake of slowness?
okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
it was kind of weird the way where we live. I You're right because I felt like if I had the time to say to you there were like we'll say there were four duplex on this one commune kind of thing, and all of our backyards we shared that, you know, shared that backyard. I mean, it was a front yard to the, for the house that's behind us, but the house next to me, it was their backyard, and so on and so on. Yeah, I think I'm getting it right that you're right that I was a little. I wanted to say something, but I felt like I needed to get to where I needed to go, and so you're very good in observing that. That I
Well,
wasn't. I was trying to not be so descriptive for the lack of the time, but you could
sure.
tell in the voice or maybe, the delivery of it that you were on point and
Well,
observing.
you had so many other parts of that story were very clear and very emotionally tuned, but that
Mhm.
part was just a little bit weak. And
Yes.
I just chalk that up to, it's a story you weren't
Mm.
prepared to tell it. None of us knew exactly what we were going to tell. So
Right.
anyway, that's all
Thank you.
stuff that
Yeah.
will come out with practice.
So much.
And
You're
I think
absolutely
one of the points, guys, is that just like we say, pacing and whether we're going fast, slow, or repetitive, all that can help advance the story. It can also give people the wrong idea if you, so you need to keep that in mind too. If you want them to be thinking or being sad or whatever, well, that may not be the time to talk real fast. That may be the time to talk real slow if that's the emotion that you want to get across. Because it works both ways. That's all I'm saying. It works when we do it right. It works when we get it wrong. So it's sort of like shaking your head saying, no, I don't want to go. You kind of want to say, no, I don't want to go, and shake your head and make sure you're in sync. So, guys, does anybody had a story that they were just dying to tell that they came up with during our break time? Viveka, you have one, and anybody else have one? I want to make sure that I give you a chance to tell a story since I gave you a break and asked you to come up with one. But I also want to make sure that we stay within time too. So, Viveka, why don't you come off mute and tell us a story?
Do you know who the least trustworthy people are on earth? 3-year-olds. Yep. Some people call them three-nagers, but they're not least trustworthy because of the attitude that gets them the name three-nagers. They're the least trustworthy because they are 36 inches of unbridled confidence with a heaping desire for independence. And they usually neither have the strength nor the wisdom to match either. I use myself for an example. 3 years old, standing at the corner of the square in Troy, Alabama, where I grew up, I could not wait to cross the street all by myself. That's a 3-year-old's mantra. I did it all by myself. Well, mom caught on to that, and she started to not hold my hand, but to hold my wrist. Because I had learned how to wriggle my hand out of her hand. But if she grabbed my wrist, I couldn't get away. Well, I learned to be obedient for a while, to not resist for a while, to build up her confidence in my obedience. And I'll never forget that day. We were standing right there at the corner of the square again, getting ready to cross the street to go to the bank. The light turned. I kept my hand in hers, but as soon as that light turned, I snatched my hand down and I stepped right out across the street. Well, there was only one problem. The car that was turning the corner barely saw me. Mom panicked. She caught me just in time. When they saw her step out, they knew to stop. And we went ahead across the street. Some years later, I just would get into different things. And mom, I remember her saying to me, I hope you have 2 children and that they're 3 times as bad as you are. And I said, and I'm not having any children. Well, here we are, 23 years into marriage and 2 children later. Tell you what happened. I now have my own 3-nager who could not wait to do something all by herself. Well, I was going about, we had gotten up early that morning, and I was going about doing the things that you need to do to get your day going. And she came in and she said to me, "Mommy, I did it." And I thought, well, what did she do? We went into her room. She had her toddler bed. It used to be her baby bed, but it was a 3-in-1, and it had converted to the toddler bed. And then she had a queen size bed because this room also doubled as one of our guest rooms. And I walked in and I looked at her bed. And what she had told me was that she had wet her bed. And I looked at her bed and it was bone dry. And I couldn't figure out why did she tell me that? And as I slowly turned to look at the full size bed, the one with the dry clean only comforter on it, I saw this big wet spot that took my breath away. And she sat there on the edge of that toddler bed. And you wouldn't believe it. She sat there on the edge of that toddler bed with her little feet dangling. And she's just kind of swinging her feet. And she said to me, "Yep, I did it all by myself." Looks like Mama got her wish.
Great timing. I like your pace of telling it, especially when it's like dreading something. You can tell that you slow down and the sentences get long when you're dreading going up. And I thought that was cool. And the dialogue portion. One thing that I think I noticed a couple of times tonight is that if you slow down with your dialogue and have some pauses in between the characters, then it stands out versus having one character step on the other character. And and well, that was mine. Anybody else have any feedback or things that they saw with Rebecca before we get ready to wrap up? Hands up, hands up. I see. Hey guys, uh, I think that sometimes it's good to actually practice and learn that way. And I think we did get a chance to practice and learn some. But as we come to a close, I want to make sure that we did what we said we were going to do. So our learning objectives were that we were going to understand the importance of pacing and timing in storytelling. We did that. Analyze examples of strong pacing from master storytellers. We did that. Practice pacing techniques using real stories and live readings. We did that, and I covered that for Dean saying the live readings also. We received constructive feedback so that refer to our pacing skills. That helps us. I think we covered all that. So the learning objectives were met for the workshop, and I appreciate you guys showing up, and I appreciate your attention. And I hope in your storytelling that you'll keep some of that stuff in mind. The ideas of what it does to tell your story and how it makes your story even more effective when you add pacing. I'm gonna let Hank wrap up and tell you guys about the next one. But as the president of TSA, I want to tell you guys that one part of our plans going forward are to make sure that not only do we get a chance to actually learn more about storytelling through these workshops, but we're going to start a virtual circle so that we get a chance more to practice. Uh, I didn't know before, but just because you're a member of TSA doesn't mean that you're a member of a guild and get a chance to actually practice telling stories. So we want to make sure that you get a chance to do that. And then maybe, who knows, from that, maybe you'll get a chance to perform at as a rising star or as one of the tellers at the festival. So this year, the whole idea is that we're going to learn, we're going to practice, and we're going to perform. So most everything about storytelling, that's what we're going to be doing. And special hello to the Brox. Uh, First time I've actually met you guys in person, but we miss your son David, and guys, you'll be seeing an email about a fund we set up for David, so that we can help young storytellers come to our festival. That's my portion for the workshop, and that's my portion for TSA president. And I'll turn it over to Hank.
Thank you, Michael. That was a great, really a great workshop, and it was very experiential, and I think we needed that, and I loved it. Next month, we want to be sure that all of you know that these master classes are the fourth Thursday, not the last Thursday of the month, but the fourth Thursday. So next month it will be on July 24th. It'll be David Thompson, and he'll be talking to us about body language and voice modulation. So please register, and we'll see you then. And God bless, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, Hank. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.